Expanding foam, we need it pretty much everywhere, but a lot of you have been grumbling recently about these guns going wrong. In today's video, I'm going to explain to you why that happens, because it happened to me recently, what you can do to avoid it, and also some popular misconceptions and things you need to remember about using this stuff. Now, I'm standing out here today because an embarrassingly long amount of time ago, this should have been rendered in by now, I used expanding foam on this window. Didn't use the right one, so don't look too closely. I'll be talking about that a little bit more later on. But the point is, when you buy expanding foam, and there are so many reasons you need it around the house, you want to get a gun grade foam with an applicator or gun like this. Why? Because, well, there are so many reasons, but fundamentally you've got much greater control. There's a little nozzle on the back that you can adjust to regulate how much foam is coming out when you pull the trigger, in marked contrast to the disposable ones, which are much harder to control and operate. And I've also been banging on about the fact that if you buy one of these non-stick guns, you don't have to worry about removing the can every time you finish using it, or in the case of those throwaway plastic nozzles, cleaning the nozzle and then running the risk it won't work next time you want to use it. With these non-stick guns, the theory is you can leave the can on there until it runs out. Or can you? Well, as with so many things, it's not that simple. And when I came to finish off the foaming on this window recently, the gun wouldn't work. And when I tried to take the can off the applicator gun, this happened. Wasting an entire can of foam. The thing is, if the gun is working correctly, you should be able to take the gun off the can without it exploding. Although there is always a slight risk that this little valve here inside the lid of the can shears off, stays with the gun, and the can goes crazy. So what went wrong? The sweet spot for me is to have two applicator guns at any one time, because it means you can put two different types of foam on those guns. We'll talk a bit more about the different types in a bit. So, having thought I'd cleaned this applicator gun, I put another can of foam onto it. Was that a good decision? Let's find out. So we've got two applicator guns here, identical guns, faithful. This one is a much older gun. So anyway, this being the older can, this has been on here right since the kitchen renovation works over a year ago. And let's see if it works. Yeah, immediately foam is coming out of the can, which is pretty remarkable really, considering how old this is and when the last time I used it. Let's move on to the problematic applicator gun with the Constructor Pro adhesive on it. Let's see how we get on with this. Okay, a little initial squirt, which I suspect is just the residue that was in the gun, and it's fully open at the back. It's had a really good shake. It's also room temperature, and literally, although there is at least half a can of foam in there, it's just not coming out. So it was time to find out why. Here we go again, another wasted can. And that is exactly the problem I'm talking about. And that entire can of foam is sadly completely wasted. I had to work out what was going wrong because this was costing me money. First thing I'm going to do, using my foam gun cleaner, is to clean off the nozzle of this gun that does work. You'll see this nozzle is in a bit of a mess. But that's partly because I suppose when I was using this a lot, I didn't clean it often enough, but there's no excuse for having any mess on this nozzle. You look at this nozzle that has been malfunctioning and you can see how clean the nozzle is. And the reason for that is after every single use, I've given it a spray. The next thing I'm going to do is take the little spray nozzle off the cap and screw the entire foam gun cleaner onto the gun and purge the gun of any foam that's in there. Of course that doesn't work because the valve in here is faulty. A quick look inside this can. You can see how effective the cleaner is at getting rid of that foam. But the valve in the can is still bubbling. It had failed, which shows why it's problematic removing cans from guns when half full. Next up, it was time to investigate what was going wrong with that valve. Quick spray of that cleaner inside the gun reveals that it's not blocked. Well, you can see that there's a little spring inside which is designed to move the bearing up and down and force it back against the underside to stop that foam spraying out, and it's not working. But after a bit more work with the drumstick, a breakthrough. Now it's moving. Do you hear this? So I thought I'd take the new gun apart to see how the design differed, as I know from my Discord channel that my patrons and Buy Me Coffee members are having no problems with this bit of kit. You've got an overall, totally different design in there. And I think the spring looks a bit more powerful. Much looser. Much looser. I mean, it's brand new, obviously, so there's no excuse for that, really. But there's no resistance there. Looking inside, we've got a nice clean housing, in marked contrast to this one, which is hardly seen much use either, but is in a bit of a mess. I mean, there's not much that should go wrong with these things. You've got a lever here which pulls the pin out of the end of the nozzle like that, and obviously when it's back it sprays foam, when it's forward it snaps it off. You've got that ball valve in there which goes up and down depending on what you're trying to do. And then the only other thing is this knob on the back, which works in a really simple way. The more you release it, the more foam you can extrude through the gun. As I tighten that, you can see the lever has less and less play in it until it's fully tightened and it's effectively completely locked in the closed position. So let's finish with a few top tips. Some are obvious and others you might not have thought about. Now, in the box you get these nozzles, and whilst the obvious use of these nozzles is to get foam into tight spots, there is another really important use for these nozzles. They keep the end of the applicator clean, because if you think about it, no foam is going to get round the top of that when you've got a nozzle attached. So my advice to you is go on Amazon and get yourself a load of these and always use them on the gun. That way you're not as reliant on that foam gun cleaner to constantly spray the end of the nozzle. I always do, incidentally, just to clean where the pin is, because that pin is the most important part of the operation of this kit. So you want to keep the end clean, but if you use these nozzles, the only bit of the gun that's going to get foam on it is the end, and that's really easy and quick to clean. And finally, before the rain completely destroys my camera, it's horrible today, I'm going to end on a point that you might not have thought about: what sort of foam you should be using on each job. Now, you might have known there's a difference between adhesive foams that are sticky and expansion foams that aren't designed to be sticky but are designed to fill gaps. But did you know that it goes more detailed than that? On one hand, you've got the difference between open and closed cell foams. On the other hand, you've got expansion rates, high expansion foams as against low expansion foams. And finally, you've got specialized foams that deal with fire rating and the adhesive against expansion that I talked about earlier. Now, I'm going to leave you to Google that at your leisure, but I mentioned earlier on that I'd used the wrong foam on my windows. The foam I should have used is something like this Sudal SWS window and door. But what's really interesting about this, I assumed this was a closed cell foam, but it's not. It's predominantly open cell, which allows it to be breathable while still being waterproof. And because of that open cell structure, it has the flexibility you need around window joints, which are prone to expansion and contraction, whilst also being excellent acoustically. Clever, eh? So anyway, that's the last point I wanted to make today. So go off and do your research to make sure you use the right foam for the job. Very important. So I hope you found today's video useful. If you have, it'd be great if you could give it a thumbs up below. There'll be links to everything I've talked about as usual in the description, including links to all the expanding foam videos you've seen today. And if you're new to my channel, please subscribe. You can do that by clicking on the link here. And don't forget to click the bell notification icon so you get notified of all my future uploads. Stay tuned because I've got some really exciting projects coming up. See you soon.